If you're just joining us, Rudy Giuliani is sweating his face off, explaining to us why Trump really won the election.
Inspectors. Every state. Almost every approved this. It's thrown away. Gone for eternity.
Is this a skit?
The only thing left is to have been a dead person. That could have been not filled out properly.
Wait, he's saying there was a dead person in the envelope? Rudy's about to have actual drops of sweat coming off of his brow. I mean, is this a normal amount? I don't know how hot it is in the room, but something seems very wrong here.
All be in the lawsuit that comes out tomorrow.
Rudy's melting.
Arizona is a state that we're looking at very, very carefully.
Strongly looking at it.
I would say we're probably, I assume, if she's working for the... I'd like to read them all to you, but I don't have the time. You should have had the time and energy to go look for them. That's your job. Like it's my job to defend the president and to represent the president. It's Maine, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada.
Is he bleeding? Did you see? Is he bleeding from his ear? What on earth was that?
Votes needed to
it's on both sides.
To find out if I'm misleading.
Is that hair dye?
Is to look at the lawsuits. In order to do it,
it looks like blood.
But in the materials,
oh my God, it's everywhere.
10,000 at least. And we're getting more.
He's got to get off the stage.
And there are other aspects of this fraud. On the morning of November 3rd,
someone's got to get him a napkin.
They were going to count this new kind of ballot.
I've never seen anything like this. What on earth? It's getting onto his shirt now.
Michigan and in Wisconsin, any jury would accept, after they heard this evidence, that somebody had this plan.
This is insane.
Maybe that was always the plan.
It looks like sap from an oak tree or a maple tree. It looks like someone's making syrup.
Should the city describe that to you?
Oh my God, it's all over his face. He's going to need a towel.
Dealing with evidence of
I don't know, guys. It's sounding like Trump won, isn't it, based on this? All right, welcome everybody. We are standing by for the Pennsylvania Republican Senate primary debate. As some of you know, the Democratic debate is happening right now. There's about 15 minutes left in it. I wasn't able to cover it from the beginning. I don't really like covering things piecemeal, so I'm aware that it's going on. I'm supporting this guy, John Fetterman. Now, interestingly, you guys may remember when Dave Rubin said he was supporting Caitlyn Jenner for governor of California. And then Caitlyn's campaign didn't return Dave's call, and then he abandoned support for her. Fetterman's ignoring us. I still support him. I think he's the best candidate, and I don't really like covering stuff piecemeal, so I'm not going to go to it. But it is going on, and if people want to tune away from my stream, I won't be offended. But what the hell would you be doing? That would be crazy. More importantly, we're still trying to find a reliable stream for the Republican piece, which will start at 8. I'm hoping that this YouTube channel, PCN TV, which is currently running the Democratic debate, will have the Republican one. But in case they don't, we're monitoring all these other websites, which supposedly are covering the stream, and many of them may get us canceled because it's all local news. I don't know. But anyway, the hope is that at 8 p.m., this channel will switch to a Republican element, and that then we'll be able to do that. Now, why do we care so much about the Pennsylvania Senate race? Well, we care about it because it quite literally may decide whether Republicans or Democrats control the Senate starting in 2023. But sir, how could that be? Well, let's take a look. There are some really good maps on 270 to win. And we start with, this is the incumbent map of those who are up for re-election. And then when we look at the 2022 consensus map, you see that there's only a few states here that are true toss-ups. There's 5. So when it's so close, any one of these 5 could be the decider. And when you look at the different maps, Pennsylvania is on just about every one of these. If you look at Sabato's crystal ball, Pennsylvania is a toss-up and it could be the decider. If you look at the Cook political report, Pennsylvania is a toss-up and it could be the decider. Inside Elections has it leaning red, although it's really a question mark. And Politico has Pennsylvania also as a toss-up. So this it's horrifying to acknowledge this because it's sort of like Trump again, or it's like, are we really? Does the country come down to celebrities? And Dr. Oz winning might give the Senate to Republicans. It's that depressing. It's that depressing. And so that's why we are very closely monitoring this debate. So the Democratic debate is about to wrap up. Then there will be a Republican debate. Hopefully we will have a good stream of it. And we don't always know. And we're doing the best we can. And if anybody knows of a definitive stream, let me know. But we have all these different streams that we're monitoring. This page says, where does it say it? Hold on. The debate will live stream here at 8. So I'm hoping that if we refresh this at 8, we'll have something. A lot of these are just duplicates. Like this one says the same thing, even though it's a different website. It's crazy when it's such a mess. But in any case, we're monitoring it all extremely, extremely closely. Now, in the meantime, I want to go over some Marjorie Taylor Greene stuff with you guys. Before I do that, thanks to SciFly FPV for the Twitch Prime subscription. You are new member number 1. Also, big thank you to Kevin Gouldy and Andrew Culp. They've just gifted 2 subscriptions on my website. And those subscriptions now go to some really great people. Lindsay Thurgood and Craig Asbury. I really appreciate that. And of course, you can gift subscriptions at your leisure on my website. Let's go to some Marjorie Taylor Greene stuff. Marjorie Taylor Greene, unfortunately, committed heavy perjury the other day. Okay. First and foremost, I'm not really set up for this. We're going to do this on the fly. I'm going to try to produce this on the fly. Let's see. Greene. Let me see if I can get this all done. Okay. So during the testimony, here's what Marjorie Taylor Greene had to say about Anthony Aguero.
Ms. Greene, did you or any member of your government or campaign staff communicate with Anthony Aguero about the events of January 6th, prior to January 6th?
I don't recall.
Okay, I don't recall. Then she was also, I'm not really set up for this. I'm going to do the best I can. Okay, she also said like he's not really a great friend of hers, okay? But unfortunately, this now uncovered video says otherwise.
Because my friend Anthony's my dear, dear friend.
Uh-oh. Wait, what did she say?
Because my friend Anthony's my dear, dear friend.
Okay, so I'll get the clip in time for tomorrow. But what she said under oath was that it's like some kind of distant friend or something like that. You know, I don't really know. So that's one example of the perjury. Now, of course, we're using the term perjury colloquially. It's very hard to legally prove that someone remembered something they claim not to. But okay, here's a text message from Marjorie Taylor Greene to Mark Meadows. In our private chat with only members, several are saying the only way to save our republic is for Trump to call for martial law. Now, she's also misspelled Marshall. It's Martial. I'm not even going to deal with that, okay? When she was asked about martial law, here's what she had to say.
Ms. Greene, did you advocate to President Trump to impose martial law as a way to remain in power?
I don't recall.
So you're not denying you did it, you just don't remember.
I don't remember.
Okay. So, I mean, like, again, now, of course, she might genuinely not remember, but that seems extraordinarily unlikely. Here's another one. This is another clip from Marjorie Taylor Greene's testimony the other day. Whoops, hold on a second. This isn't the one. Here it is.
When you were notified that people had entered the Capitol illegally, did you also understand at that point that there had been violence at the Capitol?
I only knew what I was told. I'd heard a gunshot. We all heard it. And we were so confused. We thought Antifa was breaking in or BLM because of those were the riots that had gone on. And
so she claimed under oath that she believed that it was Antifa or Black Lives Matter that was breaking in and rioting. However, we now have the text message that she sent while this was all happening. And she said to Mark Meadows, "Mark, I was just told there's an active shooter on the first floor of the Capitol. Please tell the president to calm people. This isn't the way to solve anything." This text message makes no mention of the fact that she thought it was Antifa or that she thought it was Black Lives Matter. And Black Lives Matter and Antifa don't like Trump. So why would you suggest that Trump try to calm those people down? So it's perjury all the way down. And I know, guys, I know you can't prove that she was lying when she said she didn't remember, but it seems abundantly clear that that's the case. So lie after lie after lie. Obviously, she was lying the entire time. I want to say thank you to David Morse, who just signed up on my website, joinpacman.com. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Even if, okay, so here's a fair question. If Elon Musk buys Twitch, will I still accept Twitch Prime? Yes, I will. Okay, I mean, I don't know. Why not? Right now, we call them Bezos bucks. Whenever someone signs up with Twitch Prime, we call it taking a few Bezos bucks out of Bezos' pocket. Sure, if Elon buys Twitch, then we'll call them, I guess, Musk bucks or something like that. I don't know. It seems completely fine. Seems completely fine. We are standing by for the Republican debate. It will be at the top of the hour. We hope to have a feed of it. Let's listen to a little bit of the Democratic debate taking place.
I believe that you said you want. Let me. Okay.
Yeah, let her ask the question. Okay. Go from there.
So, what do you propose for? What kind of energy source would you use for manufacturing and keeping manufacturing in Pennsylvania?
Well, thank you for asking that question. And so for folks at home, if you want an environmental champion as your next senator, clearly there's only one person on the stage for you.
Ooh, dude, you got to answer the question.
Not approve new permits for new drilling. We know right now that even across the country, we have 9,000 plus permits right now that are approved where there is no drilling. And so companies who already have those permits, they could do more drilling if they want to right now. We have to stop acting as if big polluters care about their workers, and this is about the workers. Those big polluters don't give a damn about workers.
That wasn't the question. I asked, you didn't ask, how are you going to bring manufacturing? No. It was about what will you do for manufacturing? We need energy to manufacture. You can't do it. We don't currently have. If you get rid of the fracking, we get rid of oil, how are we going to manufacture and keep jobs in Pennsylvania? That's really the question.
Will you answer that? No.
That doesn't look good.
Congressman?
That doesn't look good.
Thank you. My question is also for the Lieutenant Governor. One of my grave concerns about his candidacy is that I don't believe he can appeal to the types of swing voters that we need to win in November. These are the types of people I've been campaigning around for the last 4 years. They've elected me in districts that favor Republicans, and they, if anything, play an outsized role in a midterm election year like this one. They don't like chaos. They don't like instability, and they're very, very concerned about both inflation and the overall size of the national debt. So my question for John is very simple. It's a yes or no. Do you still support Medicare for all? Would you vote for the Medicare for all bill, yes or no?
Thank you, Connor. I support universal health care. I support health care as a basic fundamental human right. I support whatever means gets us there, whether that's the Affordable Care Act, whether that's the public option, whether that's Medicare for all. I am for allowing Congress and the federal government to negotiate for lower drug prices. I am for lowering the Medicare eligibility age. I am for adding vision dental and hearing as well too. I am for making sure that Americans have greater access to health care.
Yeah, but to his question, Medicare for all, do you support?
And I answered that. I said whatever mechanism gets us closer to health care as a fundamental human right, I'm going to support. If Connor wants to be for the insurance companies, that's his right. But I'm for health care and making sure that it's a fundamental human right for every American.
Guys, the echo is on the audio. It's not on my end.
Drug prices is at the heart of that immediately.
But he said yes, no, and I would like to get a yes, no as well. I mean, when you say getting closer, does that mean Medicare for all?
It means whatever's in front of us as a Congress to get greater access to health care for America. And my vote is decisive. I would absolutely support it.
That's how you know a 20-year politician. He's not give you a yes or no.
I'd like to say I support it. I support Medicare for all. I support
I should have just asked you.
No, well, I support it. I can answer it because you know what? This weekend I was in Schuylkill County and I met a woman who didn't have health insurance.
All
right.
Okay, well.
That's real. That's not a joke.
But,
yes, I do.
Okay.
This isn't feeling like anybody's very polished, I have to say.
Question of one of the other panel members.
Yeah. Connor, it's for Representative Lamb. How do you feel about your endorsement, Joe Manchin endorsing you through this race? And would you vote similarly to him in the Senate? You know, my fear is that I think we have one Joe Manchin is enough in the Senate, and you know his endorsement of you in this race I found troubling because I absolutely disagree with his voting record.
Let him answer your question then.
Yeah, to be honest, when John says that, I'm not sure what he's referring to. When I was a member of Congress, I held fundraisers with many senators and other members of Congress, including Senator Manchin, again, when I was a member of Congress, not a Senate candidate. And the question of how we vote is actually already answered by our actual votes. We both have voting records. I voted for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act 3 times and said we should get rid of the filibuster. I voted for the Women's Health Protection Act. I voted for raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And I voted for the Build Back Better Act. To my knowledge, he's been against all 4 of those things.
Time.
Can I?
Go ahead, sure.
Joe Manchin is Connor's mentor, and he did host a fundraiser for Connor, and he just said recently that he would make a heck of a senator. So, I mean, that's an endorsement. And I'm just saying, do you embrace Joe Manchin's endorsement of you in 2020? It's, you know, you wanted a yes-no answer, and I'm asking you, yes or no, do you embrace Joe Manchin's endorsement in the 2022 election?
Well, you have as hard of a time asking questions as you have answering them. Again, when I was a member of Congress, he appeared at a fundraiser for me and expressed his support for me as a member of Congress. I accepted it then. Of course I did. My voting record is what it is. I'll work with any Democrat to get things done. I have no problem with
I like Fetterman, but Lamb's the only one who's even remotely prepared for this debate.
The question is factually incorrect, but if you're asking me if I'll accept the support of a Democratic senator who supports my campaign, absolutely.
Joe Manchin supported it. He said you'd make a heck of a senator. And I'm saying, do you embrace his endorsement? Yes or no?
See, while they're talking about this, people at home want to know what we're going to do actually as their next senator. And here's the good news for folks watching at home. You don't have to vote for either of them.
You can vote for
You
me.
can actually vote for Malcolm Kennedy.
You can vote for Alex Khalil. But I think a Joe Manchin, I think this is really important. Why bring up Joe Manchin? Joe Manchin has been the state senator.
I am very worried that no matter who wins from these 4, this is not a policy analysis, guys. I think Dr. Oz or Dave McCormick would both crush any of these 4. Rhetorically, I'm very concerned about if control of the Senate comes down to this race. I'm scared. I'm not going to lie, guys. I'm scared.
Not go down.
All right.
We can never become West Virginia and we cannot ever allow any politician to do what Joe Manchin did to West Virginia.
All right, on this question, it's a little bit different. I'm going to ask for you to raise your hands. In a way, kind of a yes-no question, but for democracy-related questions. And I believe this goes to Representative Kenyatta.
I'll take it. Sign me up.
Oh, they're not just all raised.
Oh, they're all going to get it. Oh, that's right. Okay. Sorry, the moderator screwed.
This is a pretty scuffed debate, guys.
4 questions about democracy and just get you to raise your hand. Okay. Raise your hand if you support the positions or issues I mentioned, and then we'll discuss afterwards. Raise your hand if you support abolishing the Electoral College.
And this is as a group, right?
That's right.
But maybe I'm alone. Okay, that's fine.
What the hell?
Okay.
Okay.
And we will go back. Eliminating the Senate filibuster. All four. Okay. Expanding the number of justices on the U.S. Supreme Court. Okay. Making the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico U.S. states. Okay. All right, so let's go back to where there was some disagreement. Abolishing the Electoral College. Representative Kenyatta, why do you want to abolish the Electoral College?
Well, for folks at home who care about abolishing the Electoral College, yet again, you only have one option on this stage. The Electoral College serves no purpose other than to continue to muddy up this idea that there should be one person and one vote. I will tell you on this stage, if any one of us gets one more vote than the other person, that person will be the Democratic nominee. And yet with the Electoral College, we've seen multiple elections now where the person who got the most votes did not become president. That is a problem, and I think it erodes people's faith in
I agree here.
I'll get the other three candidates to answer this as well. Lieutenant Governor Fetterman, why don't you want to abolish the Electoral College?
I don't, and because we're Democrats. We can't be in a position where we are contradicting ourselves. If we go after the Republicans, understandably, that they're frustrated by an outcome and they go to legitimize it or to go change the structure of it, as they attempted to do with our own Supreme Court here in Pennsylvania and change the underlying rules there. I believe that we as a party need to remain logically consistent on these things.
Ooh, I don't
agree with this.
make
sure that we're not changing the structure of our government at a fundamental.
No. If we all agree on the changes in advance, that's a different. I don't like this answer from Fetterman.
And abolishing the Electoral College. You know, President Obama, a guy named Barack Hussein Obama, a man of mixed race, won twice. He won the Electoral College and he won the popular.
A guy of mixed race, jeez.
Won as well. You win elections, you lose elections. We cannot act like the last president and just get upset and say, well, we're going to change.
Does anybody know how Obama's race is relevant to the Electoral College?
Hey, Joe Biden won the Electoral College and he won the popular vote. What's more important is that our candidates speak clearly and have a clear message.
Congressman Lamb?
I actually think if we were starting our society over again from scratch, it would make a lot of sense not to have an electoral college, but we have one, and to get rid of it, you would have to amend the Constitution. Anybody who doesn't know how difficult that is, just look it up. It's not happening. It makes
That's actually not true. You've got the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact.
Can I respond to this? Sure. Because I think to suggest that abolishing the Electoral College, which is a relic of the past, which has not served us, is the same as Trump trying to overturn the last election.
This guy's right.
Pretty offensive.
This guy's right.
And makes no sense. Also, this idea that we're Democrats, we don't try to change anything, or, well, it's in the Constitution, therefore it's hard. So
this guy coming from behind quickly.
That does not make a lot of sense. The Constitution has mechanisms by which it could be changed because our founders understood it was a living, breathing document. I'm running for U.S. Senate. There's a lot of stuff we have to change. And
well done by Malcolm Kenyatta. He was completely off the wall to just not answer the earlier question, but he's 100% right here.
Hands again.
I think it was just, was it? Okay, good.
Okay, so it's just the two of you.
Yes, just the two.
Okay, Congresswoman. Yeah, I'll start with you. Did I say Congresswoman?
That's okay, you can call me, that's fine. People in Jenkintown would love it. Well, I would tell you the reason is,
what?
You know, everyone here will argue, well, we're Democrats, we don't change. But what has happened is that this particular Supreme Court has decided it wants to overturn everything from the New Deal. Their desire is that our way of life, they want to overturn. They have been planning this for a long time with the Federalist Society. In particular, Sam Alito. They have been planning steadily to go ahead and erode the entire New Deal philosophies and policies, Social Security, Medicare.
Representative Kenyatta?
Not even an answer.
First of all, this is not a new idea. I wish I could take credit for it, but I can't. We've expanded the number of justices on the bench multiple times throughout the history of our country. I think that it was Mitch McConnell, not Democrats who packed the court. When Mitch McConnell did not allow President Obama to actually appoint somebody when it was his turn, to ram through Amy Coney Barrett in opposition of the same rule that he made up to deny President Obama a seat on the bench. The Supreme Court has its lowest public trust than it's ever had.
Time.
We have to fix that.
Time. Lieutenant Governor Fetterman.
Some good answers here, I have to say.
It's the same underlying logic. You know, just in the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court, the Republicans were outraged. They were unhappy with the judgments of the Supreme Court, duly elected Supreme Court here in Pennsylvania, and now they wanted to change our Constitution to change how it was.
I'm unsure about packing the court, but I thought his answer was fine.
In a Republican Supreme Court here in Pennsylvania, the Democratic Party does not rig the rules just simply because we do not like the outcome. I wish we had a 6-3 Democratic majority in the Supreme Court, but the fact is that we don't, and I don't believe fundamentally altering the structure of the Supreme Court is the answer.
Congressman Lamb.
Yeah, I mean, I just think this whole question is a trap. One of the things I'm trying to convey here is I've spent 4 years knocking on the doors of, answering questions of at town halls, the exact type of people that are going to determine whether we are successful or fail this year. Never had a single one of them in tens of thousands of conversations ask me to add a justice to the Supreme Court. People are looking for a little bit of stability and practicality in our priorities. They want to know, where do we really stand at the end of the day? Yeah.
Most people's lives won't be destabilized by adding some justices. That I don't agree with.
Right now is a wasted moment.
All right, I want to go back to our.
Can we both think? Yeah, I have to same thing. I have to agree. You know, if Roe v. Wade is overturned, if they start attacking what we see going on with voting rights, the environment, recently the Clean Water Act, if they start going after Medicare, if they start really going after Social Security, there's a lot of things that this Supreme Court.
Aren't you doing
No,
what
I'm not.
they're saying, that there's decisions you don't like?
To my esteemed colleagues here, no one here is FDR, and he tried to do, and he wanted to do it too. And you know, he was a great Democrat who did great things for this country. Yes, you're right. No one is asking it. But what did FDR do? He said, if you will not allow us to help the American people.
Fetterman seems bored.
American people, get rid of
Representative Kenyatta, this will have to be the last word on this one.
No, thank you. I think that there's a couple of things that are being said here that are fundamentally false. We're not going to win this election by only going to doors in Western Pennsylvania that the congressman keeps referencing. The doors that we need to also be focused on, maybe even more focused on, are the doors that are in Philadelphia and southeastern Pennsylvania, the base of our party. And we keep acting as if the folks who show up for Democrats every election are somehow not as worth fighting for as some other folks. We're going to win this election by turning out folks in Philadelphia and southeastern Pennsylvania.
All right, I want to go back to our questioners now. Evie DeJesus of Penn Live has the next question, and this is for Representative Kenyatta.
Representative Kenyatta, we're going to go back to energy for a minute. President Biden recently walked back a campaign pledge to end new drilling on permits on public lands. Do you agree, and how do you see Pennsylvania's role in the natural gas economy?
Well, I'm going to have to agree with candidate Biden and disagree with what he did there.
Whoa.
What I do support is releasing more petroleum out of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. What I do support is actually making sure that we don't give 1 cent more in tax breaks to big polluters and actually put our investments into clean technologies of the future. And what I have said repeatedly is that a part of the increase that people are feeling at the pump, the sheets down the street, 409 before I came here, a part of that we have to acknowledge is that big oil and gas CEOs are making more money than they've ever made and are not passing on those savings to the consumers. And there are a number of different bills that people are talking about right now in Washington to make sure that they cannot do the type of greedy practices that have allowed companies like Shell and BP to make more money than they've ever made. While still
Let's see if we have the start to the Republican debate. It looks like it's not there. Let's see if we refresh here. The stream will be here at 8 p.m. Not seeing it there. Let's try this one. Looks like it might be coming up here in a moment. Let's check this web. Like all these different websites supposedly are carrying it, but Live Now Republican debate. Oh, hold on. Let's see. Let's see if we can get this all squared away. Live now. We'll be right back. I think I can probably pick this up if we need to.
Their first statewide debate. Dave McCormick.
Okay.
Mehmet Oz. Kathy Barnett.
Give me a second to get this squared away, all right, guys?
Carla Sands.
See how I
Live
can do
from your
this.
local election headquarters in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. This is the Pennsylvania Republican primary U.S. Senate debate.
We'll get it.
Well, good evening, welcome, and thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Dennis Owens with ABC 27 News in Harrisburg.
And I'm Lisa Sylvester with WPXI Channel 11 News in Pittsburgh. We are broadcasting and streaming live across every county in the Commonwealth.
The 4 Republican candidates standing on the stage tonight have met our eligibility criteria, each hoping to become the next senator from Pennsylvania.
So here are the rules for tonight's debate. Each candidate will get 60 seconds to answer a question. The candidate will get 30 seconds to answer if there's a follow-up or rebuttal. And if a clarification is needed, they will have 15 seconds.
Okay, we just went up on
the candidates throughout the night of those times. The sound of a bell will ring when their time is up.
Our bell is working, as you can hear. You are watching tonight's debate from one of our Nexstar media stations across the state and our partner station in Pittsburgh, WPXI TV.
All right, we want to get right to what people want to know. So how did each of you end up running for a U.S. Senate seat in Pennsylvania? According to our Nexstar Emerson College The Hill poll, more than 70% of Republican voters said the amount of time a candidate has lived in Pennsylvania is important. We begin with Mr. McCormick. You've been campaigning on your Pennsylvania roots, but you have not actually lived in Pennsylvania for the last 15 years. So explain why it seems that you returned to the Commonwealth just in time to run for the U.S. Senate. Mr. McCormick, you have 60 seconds.
Listen, I'm a 7th-generation Pennsylvanian. I grew up in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania.
Sounds like
where
Trump.
we had a family farm. And I spent the first 18 years of my life hunting and fishing and playing sports. And then I went to West Point. And so I left for my first tour of duty to West Point, the Army, spent 5 years in the Army where I was a combat veteran in the 82nd Airborne Division. Then I came back to Pennsylvania, and I spent 10 years building a great company in Pittsburgh that created 600 jobs. And throughout that time, throughout my entire life, we've had the family farm for 45 years, and I've been the owner of that family farm for the last 10 years. So my Pennsylvania roots are deep. I'm very connected to my friends where I grew up, and I'm very connected to the people of Pennsylvania, and it'd be a great honor and a privilege to be able to represent them in the Senate.
All right, thank you, Mr. McCormick. Turning to you, Mr. Oz, except for your time attending medical school and graduate school, you have not actually lived in the Commonwealth in Pennsylvania. So how do you respond to concerns that you do not know what is best for Pennsylvanians? You have 60 seconds, sir.
Well, Pennsylvanians that I speak to are quite clear. They care much more about what I stand for than where I'm from. But I did grow up less than 10 miles from Kennett Square, where my father learned a lot about mushrooms. He was an immigrant, recruited to this country as a doctor, and he would always tell me, don't be a mushroom when you grow up. And to make sure I did not sit in the dark all day long, get fed manure, and then get canned at the end of it all, I went to medical school at Penn, business school at Wharton, and then the biggest and most important decision of my life, I met and married my wife, Lisa. We actually live in the house we were married in.
All right, thank you, Mr. Oz. Ms. Barnett,
where is the
you
house?
have lived in Pennsylvania since you were quite young, and we know that Pennsylvania voters value their deep roots here, but you're not polling higher. What do you feel you have to do in order to improve your poll numbers? You have 60 seconds.
Actually, in the last poll, in the Travolcker poll, I am essentially at a 3-way statistical tie for first place. And that is a direct result of the people here in Pennsylvania because they want one of their own. You know, I don't make many promises on the campaign trail, but I can promise the people of Pennsylvania that when these carpetbaggers lose, you will never see them again. And if they should win, you will never see them again. And I think we've gone through 2 of the worst years of our lives during the pandemic and on. And I believe people are very concerned about making sure that our voices are represented. They want someone who doesn't just parachute into our state because it's an opportune time for them to do so, and then if they should win, then they leave and we have no voice. This seat is too important to just throw away our voice like that.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Barnett. Turning to you, Mr. Bartos, in that Trafalgar poll that Ms. Barnett referenced, you are running in the back of the pack of the
Dead
five
last
candidates on the stage tonight. You recently expressed some frustration that you've been campaigning for years while some of your your political opponents only recently got into the race. Mr. Bartos, how do you explain why you are trailing in the polls?
What are you doing here, sir?
Well, I'm a lifelong Pennsylvanian. Proudly raised in Berks County, married a Pennsylvania girl, grew up in Allentown. We've raised our two girls in the state. And I think there's a key difference. The reason 40% of the Republican electorate right now remains undecided is because they're trying to figure out who do they trust? Who do they trust to actually do what they say they're going to do? And you're going to hear this a lot tonight. There's a lot of words from a lot of the candidates. I am the only candidate running who has a proven track record of actually getting things done for the people of Pennsylvania. When the Democrats shut us down, when Tom Wolf and John Fetterman shut us down the last 2 years, I rolled up my sleeves, I gathered a great group of leaders, we raised $3.5 million and helped over 1,000 women and men across all 67 counties keep the lights on in their small businesses, saving thousands of jobs.
Sir, could you have possibly chosen a more vile suit color?
For them, because I always have. I always will, because I always have. That's the key differentiator in this race. A lot of words from the other candidates. I'm a doer. I'm a fighter. I'm going to win this race because Pennsylvanians know they trust me to go down there and fight for them.
There you go.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Bartos. Ms. Sands, you grew up in Cumberland County, in fact, not very far away from where you're standing right now, but you spent most of your time outside of the Commonwealth. So same question, why does it appear that you perhaps are not connecting with Pennsylvania voters? 60 seconds to respond.
Well, I am connecting with Pennsylvania voters. I am an 8th generation Pennsylvanian, so my family's been in Pennsylvania longer than anyone else in this race. And as a matter of fact, my first real job was at Hershey Park. And I live close to my elderly parents and my sister and brother. There's only one person on this stage that has spent more time in Pennsylvania than me, and that's Jeff, because I've spent about half my life here. I worked as a 3rd generation doctor of chiropractic with my father in Camp Hill.
Oh,
and then
shit.
I went to Denmark and served as the U.S. ambassador to Denmark, Greenland, and the Faroe Islands. So I voted and paid taxes in Pennsylvania, even when I was serving abroad, on behalf of all Pennsylvanians and all Americans as well, working to counter Russia.
She's a chiropractor. Dr. Oz is an MD, but has she ever suggested people drink silver?
Because I actually increased our trade with my great team over 43% while I was there. So there's no one else in this race who's more Pennsylvanian than I am.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sands. Dennis.
Well, we've all seen them, therefore we can't ignore them. We need to follow up here about the attack ads that have been flooding TVs, phones, and mailboxes across Pennsylvania. An unprecedented amount of money, tens of millions of dollars so far, has been spent, much of it on negative advertising directed.
Wait, the chiropractor was caught using the N-word? Is that what people are saying? Is that true?
You've heard, sir, but you've been called a Hollywood liberal and a rhino, Republican in name only. What do you say to the critics who are saying that? You have 30 seconds.
These are ads primarily run by one of my opponents, Mr. McCormick, and they are designed to try to fool the electorate. Mr. McCormick approached President Trump with these types of information, was unable to pull the wool over his eyes. President Trump saw right through him. He therefore did not endorse Mr. McCormick. He endorsed me. And out of that, and another slew of these ads has arisen, once again trying to tell Pennsylvanians something that President Trump does not believe is true, and I can state categorically is not true.
Okay, Mr. McCormick, an attack ad claims that you made billions of dollars for China and millions for yourself as a hedge fund manager. In 30 seconds, what is your response to that criticism?
Listen, I've been a successful businessman. I've run 2 businesses. I served in our military for 10 years fighting against the communists. I negotiated at the highest levels against the Chinese and other countries when I had a top secret clearance with the National Security Council. And I've done business around the world in 20 countries, including 2% of our business in China. And it's just disingenuous for Mehmet to say that when Mehmet has so many dollars coming in his pocket from China, which we can talk about, that it's sort of mind-boggling.
Wow.
And we can talk more about the negative ads, because the negative ads in my case...
This is going to be a hell of an election season, I'm realizing.
Really quickly, you've also been accused of flip-flopping on key conservative issues like abortion.
That's
since
true.
You've been running for Senate.
That's true.
You said you support overturning Roe versus Wade. Should there be exceptions for rape, incest, or the life of the mother? 30 seconds.
President Trump endorsed me quite clearly in the first point he made about why I'm a conservative, America First Republican. He said that I am pro-life, and I am pro-life. I've been very clear on my position throughout this race.
What about the exceptions?
There isn't, to my knowledge, evidence that I'm not pro-life. In fact, in crowded groups, I've been always out there saying that I'm pro-life, even if everyone else in the group is pro-choice. And I've been able to proudly proclaim as a heart surgeon who's taking care of little babies 4 or 5 days old. I met one recently, actually, that has now grown up to become a teenager. But saving those children's lives.
He recently met a baby, and it's already a teenager.
There be an exception.
There should be an exception for the life of the mother. We don't want mothers dying as they try to give birth to a child.
Mr. McCormick, also with you. If Roe versus Wade is overturned, should there be exceptions for rape, incest, or the life of the mother? And we will hear from everybody on this. You have 30 seconds, sir.
Well, I want to say Mehmet has flip-flopped on every major issue. And you can go to his own comments. May 21st, 2019, an interview at the Breakfast Club. He essentially said that he was worried about the pro-life movement that was creating fights. He was worried about states putting in place pro-life legislation. And he called into question when life begins at conception. So it's just not true. It's in his own words, which are all these things are in his own words.
It's completely true that Mehmet has flip-flopped on the issue of abortion.
I believe in the very rare instances there should be exceptions for life of the mother.
Okay, I want to move to Ms. Barnett. You have 30 seconds. You have spoken passionately about the issue of abortion while on the campaign trail. You're very much pro-life. Should there be any exceptions in your view? You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, actually, I actually should get a minute because you've asked them 2 questions and you're just now getting to me.
Please.
But a high name ID, which is really one of the only reasons why Mehmet Oz received that endorsement, works both ways. His name ID is so high that people know he's not a conservative. Hence the reason why I'm the only one in that last poll who shot up and got the benefit out of that particular endorsement.
She was popping off.
MAGA does not belong to President Trump. MAGA, although he coined the word, MAGA is actually, it belongs to the people. Our values never shifted to President Trump's values. It was President Trump who shifted and aligned with our values.
Shot out of a cannon,
Mr. Bartos, you two are pro-life. Should there be exceptions, or do you support an entire ban of abortion? 30 seconds.
Well, wait, before we get to that, your viewers at home should play a drinking game every time these candidates talk about themselves.
Oh, my God.
This election has to be about the voters. It has to be about you, the voters, not about us. They've made this about themselves. They've spent $60 million fighting with each other. And people pat themselves on the back and bang their chest about how wonderful they are. This election is about fighting for the people of Pennsylvania, making Pennsylvania what she can be. We can't have this. We have to beat the Democrats in November.
Wow.
That's why. Where have these guys been for the last 7-10 years?
What about your answer, dude?
Conservative principles.
Let me just ask you, though, quickly, should there be exceptions when it comes to abortion?
Yes, I believe in exceptions.
Okay, let's turn to Ms. Sands. You're also proudly pro-life. Should there be exceptions, or should abortion be banned across the board? You have 30 seconds.
I am pro-life at the beginning of life and at the end of life. But I do want to comment on 2 of my opponents.
Answer the question.
Oz says he's pro-life, but as a matter of fact, he's not just not pro-life, and we've just tweeted out his own words that he is not pro-life, but also he's Turkey first. He served in the Turkish military, not the U.S. military.
Uh-oh.
And he chose to do that. He chose to put Turkey first, and he has said that the baby's heartbeat is not a heartbeat, it's an electrical impulse. We know that's what a heartbeat is.
Whoa.
Dave McCormick, he is China first.
Okay.
He made his fortune in China, and he is China first.
Ms. Sands, thank you very much. I do want to give Mr. Oz a moment, 15 seconds to respond.
President Trump was very clear. I'm America first. I was obliged to serve for 2 months in the infirmary in the Turkish military, which I did in order to be able to visit my parents as I went through my life. I can love my mother, and I can love my country as well.
Thank you, Lisa.
All right, moving on. We want to talk about the economy and American jobs.
This is a complete and total mess, guys. This country is in real rough shape.
The supply chain that have contributed to inflation and product shortages. Outsourcing, some companies have said that this is profitable, but we have seen firsthand how this can be risky in a crisis. Ms. Barnett, how would you bring back high-paying American jobs and address the supply chain shortages? Please be specific.
Specifically,
Yes, much of what we are experiencing, if not almost all of it, is as a direct result of the failed policies of the Democrat Party.
Wrong.
But here's the rub. Democrats can change absolutely everything tomorrow if they wanted to. They would just have to admit that every single thing they've ever done and said has been a complete and utter failure. And what are the odds of them doing that? So when you're looking at what they've done, it's not COVID that stopped the supply chain. The reason why the supply chain is the way it is right now, we have 20% of the 9,000 shipping containers sitting outside of ports, and instead of Pete Buttigieg doing what was necessary to get the goods and services off those ships and onto the shelves and grocery stores, he went and took
this seems like a skit. Yeah, Buttigieg would wipe the floor with all 4 or 5 of these.
energy resources into being able to drill and get it out to not just Americans, but also to the rest of the world. Democrats have decided to weaponize climate change and to create a war against energy. So
that's a real word salad, guys. That's worse than Palin.
Mr. Bartos, how would you bring jobs back to America? How would you also address the supply chain shortages? Please be specific, 60 seconds.
Sure. I'm running to save Main Street, Pennsylvania. That's the whole campaign. It's been focused on all 67 counties' Main Streets. The number one way to do it is to unleash Pennsylvania's energy industry. We are sitting on 2 Saudi Arabia's worth of natural gas. We can power the nation and we can power our allies around the world with Pennsylvania resources. And natural gas is a much cleaner alternative to the coal plants that are being fired up all around the world. These greenies in Europe and around the country, they're making coal happen. Pennsylvania is not only the key to keeping Vladimir Putin in check and holding him in check and stopping his war of aggression, but it is the key to bringing good paying working family jobs back here to
honestly, like none of these candidates are even speaking substantively about anything.
Here to run. They don't know Main Street, Pennsylvania. They haven't cared to spend time there until they decided to run for office. You can't save Main Street, Pennsylvania if you cannot find Main Street, Pennsylvania.
This is a brutal assault on the English language.
Your families and what's best for this place I've lived in my whole life and live with every fiber of my being. As a United States Senator, I'll be in Washington fighting for pipelines, getting our gas to market.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bartos. Turning to you, Ms. Sands, in 60 seconds, how would you bring back high-paying American jobs and how would you address the supply chain shortages? 60 seconds.
Thank you. It is so important that we bring back those jobs. We saw under the Trump economy that we had record levels of employment for women, minorities, the least educated, and he was beginning to bring back those manufacturing jobs, lowering regulations and making us competitive with the rest of the world with our tax structure. We have to hold the line and support the low regulations. I will work to do that in Washington. We're going to onshore those jobs. The supply chain, in much of the cases right now, is in trouble because China is locking down their cities like Shanghai, and we have to make things here. So I say we bring those jobs back.
So basically this is Stepford wife lady who has no idea what's going on. The woman next to her is so hyped up every sentence has 20 ideas. Then you've got kind of like the facelift guy in the middle who just is very creepy. Then it's Mehmet Oz, who just says Trump every answer. And then you've got possibly the lowest energy person I've ever seen on the left.
Mr. McCormick, turning to you, how would you deal with the supply chain issues and how would you bring back American jobs?
Well, listen, first, just back to the last question. I'm not going to be out Pennsylvania or out America first by anybody on this stage. I've spent more of my life in Pennsylvania than you and Mehmet for sure.
Not
Jeff,
true.
not you. I've gone to the military to fight for America, America first. No one else can say that. And then I've created 600 jobs here in Pennsylvania in my company. None of you can say that. So I put my track record with Pennsylvania and America up against anyone here. Jeff's right. It's the energy sector is key to unlocking our economy. It's key to creating jobs here in Pennsylvania. And this is what we should be talking about as candidates on this stage. We have to unlock energy. And this is where Mehmet's got a real problem.
If I were in this and I was trying to distinguish myself, like let's say I moved to Pennsylvania, or as they say, Pennsylvania, and I knew that I was going to be attacked for how long I was going to be there, I would try refusing to engage, and I would go, listen, I live here now. I understand the problems, and I'm not going to waste any more of the audience's time doing a penis-sized contest as to who's lived here. Let's talk about solutions. Let's talk about them now.
Supply chain issues.
Dishonest Dave is at it again. He went groveling to President Trump with, again, these types of allegations. President Trump saw right through him, did not endorse him, and then he endorsed me because, as he said in his announcement, which he wrote himself, I know exactly how to manage our energy issues and deal with many of the other factors that we as a nation have to be strong and bold on. Let me speak to the specific answer. As a professor, a scientist, and someone who understands a little bit about the actual energy infrastructure, there is no way the Green New Deal is going to provide us what the Democrats promised. It's a lie. It's a false narrative, like so much of what they said about COVID. And so if you look at the architects of the Green New Deal, you'll realize that that's why they're shutting down our ability to harvest natural gas from under our feet here in Pennsylvania. Natural gas that could power the entire country for 200 years. They will provide well-paying jobs here in Pennsylvania. And I'll give you a stat. If we take our natural gas and ship it overseas, to replace what they're currently using, it will be the equivalent of electrifying every vehicle in America, plus a solar panel on every one of your roofs, plus doubling wind energy, all together every year for 30 years.
All right.
That's progress.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Oz. Turning to you, Mr. McCormick. First.
This is a real cringe stream. I apologize to you guys.
Keeps talking about President Trump's endorsement is because he can't run on his own positions and his own records.
That's true.
And what's true is that he has flip-flopped on every major issue we're talking about in this campaign. He's never in his entire media career advanced a conservative agenda. They're all liberal points, liberal agenda that he put forward, and now he's flip-flopping. And the problem, Doctor, is there's no miracle cure for flip-flopping, and Pennsylvanians are seeing right through
miracle cure.
And that's what you're
That's
dealing with, and that's why you're not taking off
I
your clothes.
like.
All right, we got to stay with the economy for a quick follow-up. This is for everyone, so we get everyone weighing in here. Ms. Barnett, we're going to turn back
Miracle
to you.
cure. That's beautiful.
Blame President Biden for inflation. What is one economic decision the Biden administration has made that you would vote to reverse? Ms. Barnett, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Yes, thank you so much. Listen, you know, for the overwhelming majority of Americans, we've been out here doing the right things. We've been working, we've been paying our bills, we've been sending our kids off to school, we've been trying to put something to the side. And right now, and that has generally been the vehicle towards achieving the American dream. But right now, the American people, for those who are those Americans who are 90% below the top 10% of Americans versus the bottom 90% of Americans, they have been suffering through
Not even the beginning of an answer. We weren't even leading to an answer here.
being weaponized.
The question was, what Biden policy would you reverse? If I was them, I would come prepared and I would go, listen, the absolute worst thing Joe Biden has done is I don't even know. I mean, what has he done economically that's so bad, quite frankly? He just hasn't done that much.
It was a disaster. Everywhere we go, and I'd say all of us, because we're all traveling around the state, everywhere we go, from Susquehanna County to Washington County, from Erie to Delaware County, we can't find employees. Employers cannot find employees.
So many people are working. There's no free employees. That sounds like a good problem to have, sir.
Down. Our economy will not get back on track until people start working on. The Biden administration paid people to stay home.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bartos.
Upside down.
Turning to you, Ms. Sands, you have 30 seconds. One economic decision President Biden made that you would change.
Disoriented.
Right. Well, it's the out-of-control spending. I'll stop it the day I arrive in Washington, because we're going to bring more America First senators than just myself. And we will stop the out-of-control spending, and it's going to bring down the inflation.
Guys, the deficit is down under Biden, not the debt. The deficit is down from Trump to Biden.
I will bring down the price at the pump for them. I will bring down that inflation and give them some relief. Carla Sands is going to bring down the price at the pump.
The president can't bring down the price of gas, and she's going to do it?
Question, what is an economic decision that you would reverse? You have 30 seconds.
There's three things we could do to win back the war on inflation. The first thing we need to do is unlock our energy sector. That was a terrible decision. That's driving the price of fuel. That's driving inflation. The second thing we need to do is put pro-growth economic policies in place
like what?
that ultimately grow our economy and deregulate. And the third thing we need to do is cut back dramatically on this spending. Republicans, Democrats alike over the decades have not been prudent on spending, but what's happened over the last 18 months?
Biden cut the spending from Trump.
In American history, we got to pull back on the spending. Those are the drivers of inflation. As a job creator, I know what to do.
All right, thank you, Mr. McCormick. Mr. Oz, what is an economic decision the Biden administration has made that you would like to see changed? 30 seconds.
Drinkable
Joe
echinacea.
Biden is building back better is the Republican Party. And it's pretty clear to all of us right here, they were getting a tremendous boost from the inadequacies of his leadership. The number one thing I would do is reverse an executive order passed January 27th, right after he was inaugurated in 2021, which stopped drilling on federal lands.
At least he's listing a policy.
This country is under those federal lands. Those lands are ours.
At least he answered the question.
All of us together. They should be lands that we can drill on. It'll provide us energy independence, actually energy dominance, make it easier for us to help our allies overseas.
All right, thank you. Dennis.
Well, the phrase America First has become a rallying cry for the Republican Party. All of you, to some degree, many tonight, have embraced it. And on the campaign trail, Mr. Bartos, we're going to begin with you. Do you consider yourself an America Firster? And in 60 seconds, can you tell us exactly what that means?
What a trash question.
President Trump won Pennsylvania in 2016 because for the first time in generations, millions of our fellow Pennsylvanians felt listened to. They had felt ignored for generations, and someone was finally listening to them.
Might as well say, which one of you likes America?
jobs. It means all of the main streets that I've had the privilege to travel around the last 5 years in all 67 counties, meeting working families, meeting farmers, meeting the people out there fighting in our healthcare systems to make sure we stay well, fighting to make sure our energy gets to market. They had someone in the White House fighting for them. And so President Trump's policies, remember, just 3 short years ago, we had the best economy in our lifetimes. All of our lifetimes. I'm looking around the room here. We're all young enough to say our lifetimes. Unemployment at the absolute low for every group that's measured. People were working. The economy was growing. And for the people...
Unemployment's at an absolute low right now. Do these guys have no idea what's going on?
America First means policies that put working families on a path to growing and climbing that ladder, parents being empowered to make the decisions right for themselves and their children, and safe and secure communities.
Thank you. We're going to turn to Ms. Sands. Same question. Define what America First means to you and how it would guide your work as a senator. You have 60 seconds.
Thank you so much. So everyone here on this debate stage is talking about being America First. They're all saying it. I actually did it. I'm the only person in this race that was appointed by President Trump to be his ambassador to Denmark, Greenland, and the Faroe Islands that actually worked in the administration, putting America First policies forward every single day. Also, Kathy, to my left...
You should see the way there's American flags all over the Faroe Islands now, thanks to this woman.
20 points in a red wave year. And she says America First, but she can't actually close the deal. She lost by 20 points, and it was not stolen by 20 points. We need someone who can win this election.
It was stolen by 10, so she still lost by 10.
Will always vote conservative and America First in Washington. You can count on me. They did not steal that election by 20 points. She lost her last election to a weak Democrat. John Fetterman is not a weak Democrat. He's strong. I will beat John Fetterman in the fall.
Thank you. I am going to give you 30 seconds to respond, Ms.
Thank you so much for that. Because are you saying that there was absolutely that the 2020 election was above par, that there was no fraud, that there was no issues with that?
Not 20 points.
Are you telling me that it was perfect? And because apparently that's what she's saying. So for all of us in the Republican Party, now we have a candidate on stage, Carla Sand, who is saying that there was absolutely nothing to see in that 2020 election. But beyond that, you say that you are America First, and you did so much for President Trump, and yet
what a gong show!
Thank you, Ms. Barnett.
What a joke!
Ms. Sands, I'm going to give you 15 seconds quickly to respond to that.
President Trump doesn't always get the best advice. It's unfortunate but true. I am the only conservative voice.
No, you're not.
That every Pennsylvania voter can count on to always put America and Pennsylvania first. I actually did it. Everyone else talks about it.
Thank you both very much. Speaking of America First, let's go back to you, Mr. McCormick. The original question in 60 seconds. How do you define America First?
I thought the Dem debate was bad. This is even worse.
He put his finger on the fact that there were many millions of Americans and many millions of Pennsylvanians that were left behind, and that the policies and the leadership didn't take care of them. And I was reminded of this. This crystallized for me about a month into the campaign in Carbon County.
At least the lighting is better, yeah.
And a woman came up to me, and she told me that she wanted to tell me about her son, Michael. And Michael had volunteered for the military after 9/11, had gone to Afghanistan, had been in a terrible combat situation, and came home and was really struggling, and then sadly killed himself. And she said, when you get to Washington, I want you to watch out for Michael. Watch out for the Michaels of the world. And she handed me this gold star. And that's what this is about. That's what America First is about. It's about taking care of the Michaels.
Are these candidates particularly terrible, or am I just more cynical? Because these 4 or 5 seem particularly bad.
They haven't been represented, they haven't been led, and that's what America First is to me.
Thank you. Turning to Mr. Oz, former President Trump endorsed you. He coined that phrase, America First, in 60 seconds.
No, he didn't.
Define it exactly?
One word: respect.
America First goes back to anti-Semitic World War II stuff. Trump didn't invent it.
Line for their turn, and they kept getting pushed out of the way by the federal government pretending to help. And the reality is, when you respect people, they gravitate towards you. That's why President Trump has done so well. And by respecting people, specifically that manifests by educating their kids And that includes, by the way, protecting them from indoctrination when they're 5, 6, 7 years of age. But it also means putting them through high school so they learn a trade. They're able to go out and actually make a living. And they're in a position where they can go out and become what conservatives need to do, which is to populate the country with people who think about conservative values as they make their lifelong decisions. Conservatism lives because we respect each other. We have to respect the working class population. They have been pushed to the side, and we can do better.
Okay, Ms. Barnett, we're going to turn to you. In 60 seconds, what does America First mean to you?
Yeah. You know, a few moments ago, Mehmet said that MAGA means respect. No, MAGA means freedom. And if you are a conservative Republican, you know that. Yes, President Trump coined the word MAGA, but the word itself, Make America Great Again, belongs to the people. What does it mean? It means the freedom to live my life the way I choose to live my life, and not to have anyone's foot placed on my throat telling me what I can and cannot do, forcing me to take a jab when I may or may not want to take a jab, forcing me to do things or to teach my children certain curriculum that I don't want to do. That is what the word means. So although it was coined by President Trump, it certainly belongs to the people of this great nation, and we need to be very mindful of that. And
why do they think Trump made that up? That's so dumb.
Very clear. It doesn't take much for someone to learn our talking points as conservative Republicans and then come back on stage and parrot them to us. Look at how people have lived their lives prior to the opportunity to actually run for this seat.
Thank you very much. We do have a follow-up for everyone, beginning with Mr. Bartos. Former President Donald Trump continues to talk about the 2020 election. Is it time for the Republican Party to move forward?
Fair
Mr.
question.
Bartos, 30 seconds.
Good question.
Unfortunately, Joe Biden's the president. And as a result of his lack of leadership, we have chaos in Russia, the illegal war, the aggression against Ukraine. We have chaos in the Middle East. We have an ascend in Iran. We have an ascend in China. We have an economy in disarray. We have runaway inflation. And this is on the heels of every Democrat running. Every Democrat running this year is going to have to answer for lockdowns, shutdowns, lives ripped apart. So the 2020 election was a catalyst for what we're seeing now, which is Americans are going to stand up with one loud voice, and Pennsylvania certainly will in November, and we are going to have historic wins in November.
Thank you. Ms. Sands, turning to you. You have 30 seconds. Is it time for the GOP to move on and pass the 2020 election?
Well, I'll just refer you and your viewers. First of all, Dinesh D'Souza's new movie just came out.
Oh, no.
It's just dropping, and it's about this deal of 2020. Also, Senator Rand Paul said the election of 2020 was stolen by the Zuckbucks, Mark Zuckerberg and his family and his friends, changing the outcome of the election by private money controlling our election. We have to ban it. I'll ban it in Washington. On day one, I'll work to do that for all of you. But also, Mehmet Oz says that he's always been a conservative. I will just share with you. I just tweeted out, my team, as we walked in, his statements.
She's tweeting, guys.
We need to move on. Mr. McCormick, moving to you. Should the GOP move on from the 2020 election? You have 30 seconds.
Well, when you take the oath to protect this country, the thing you're protecting is our right to vote. And we have a tragedy here that most Republican voters in Pennsylvania don't believe in the integrity of the election.
It's just terrible.
And there's all sorts of reasons to worry about it, with the extension of the mail-in ballot and the lack of security of the ballot boxes, the lack of oversight of precincts, and then
Do you believe Hillary using autoresponders on her email during vacations should be investigated?
Was suppressed. So we've got to fix this. We've got to fix this at the state level. We've got to fix this now. We've got to have a governor that signs the right legislation. And the most important thing, voter ID. We got to have voter ID.
Thank you. We're going to move to Mr. Oz. Have you discussed the 2020 election with former President Trump, and do you think it's time for the party to move on? You have 30 seconds, sir.
I have discussed it with President Trump, and we cannot move on. As all the other candidates up here have outlined, under the cover of COVID, there were draconian changes made to our voting laws by Democratic leadership, and they have blocked appropriate reviews of some of those decisions. We have to be serious about what happened in 2020, and we won't be able to address that until we can really look under the hood.
Okay, Ms. Barnett, we're going to turn to you. 30 seconds. Is it time for the GOP to move past that 2020?
Never move on.
Absolutely not. There's nothing more important than making sure that my one vote matters. And we see that elections have consequences. And I thought it was very interesting that Carla Sands is going to delineate how the election was not above par and yet try to throw me under the bus for what I had no control over. We ran an amazing race in 2020. But yes, elections have consequences, and we must understand what happened, and we must hold people accountable. Not just understand, but we need to hold people accountable for what they did.
Thank you,
I'd
Lisa.
like to respond.
All right.
What did
I'd
they
like to
do?
respond. 15-second response.
Yes.
and then
Who
we're
did
moving
it?
on.
So as I stated before, Kathy played the same card 2 years ago.
And what
She's
card
playing
was
now,
that? And what card
she
was
lost
that?
by 20
What card
points.
was that
And she
exactly?
has to take a hard
What
look in
card
the
was
mirror
that
because
exactly?
she did not.
So
They
you're
did
just
not
talking
steal
out
the
the
Ms.
side of your
election by
mouth.
Ms.
20
Barnett,
points.
I'm going to ask that
What
you refrain
card
from
was it?
speaking when Ms. Sands is speaking. 15 seconds for your rebuttal. We are then going to be moving on to another topic. We have to try to get in as
But
many
she
topics
called
as
my
possible.
name and she made a salacious comment
We
towards me,
will
so
get a
I will
chance-
be asking
you
for
will get
rebuttal.
a chance to respond. Ms. Sands first, 15 seconds.
Yes, as I said before, the election of 2020 was not stolen by 20 points. Ms. Barnett lost to a weak Democrat. John Fetterman is a strong Democrat. I will beat John Fetterman in the fall. I have the foreign policy experience, the defense policy experience.
Thank you, Ms. Sands.
And the
What a
trade
waste
policy
of a
experience.
debate.
Ms. Barnett, now I want to
my
just take
15
a moment.
seconds.
I want to take a moment, though, to remind you of the rules. If you are talking over each other, no one at home can hear you. We are doing
It's a
this for the
Democrat
voters.
trick.
Just remember that we are doing this for the voters. If you are speaking over each other, no one can hear. 15-second rebuttal, Ms. Barnett, then we are moving on to the next topic.
Yes. Again, we ran an amazing race, and this is just talking out of both sides of your mouth. Do you have a crystal ball? How do you know how many votes were whether through legal fraud, whether through outright fraud?
Legal fraud. Some of the fraud was against the law. Some of it was completely legal fraud.
And COVID. First question going to Ms. Sands. The pandemic has raged for 2 years and has impacted every segment of our society and our economy, as we all know.
God,
hopefully, God willing, we will never have to go through anything like that again. But if we do, what have we learned over the past 2 years that would specifically shape your policy priorities for the next pandemic? We begin with you, Ms. Sands, in 60 seconds.
Well, I'm wearing a helmet to start for safety.
The pandemic, I was serving as the U.S. ambassador in Denmark, and my team and I watched what was happening in here at home. We were shocked at how Democrats who are left-leaning and mayors who are left-leaning treated their citizens, the lockdowns. They took their talking points, their efforts, from the Chinese Communist Party, who controls the World Health Organization. It's shocking how draconian these rules were and how much they hurt our seniors who were locked away, our businesses that were destroyed, and our children who lost education and lost their freedom. We know that the pandemic came from China, from Wuhan, and the Chinese Communist Party shut down the flights from Wuhan to the rest of China, but they encouraged the flights from Wuhan to the rest of the world, and the World Health Organization encouraged the same thing. It is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. Citizens must say no, never again to mandates. We are free citizens.
Turning to you, Mr. McCormick, you have 60 seconds.
Is that homophobic? No more mandates?
2 years that would shape your policy priorities in the event we have another pandemic.
Well, I think what we've learned is that the government overreach by dictating everything from vaccines to testing to mass protocols has wrought huge damage on our population, on our children, on our businesses, and those decisions best rest with individuals and businesses to make the right decisions for them. And so what we've learned is we need to be careful about not letting the government take too much responsibility and control. And this is where Mehmet Oz cracks me up, because I hear all his statements about COVID now, and this is a guy who on national television said the Chinese were doing a great job with COVID lockdown.
He did.
Who complimented Anthony Fauci as a great scientist and a great leader.
Good.
And who was the guy who was out there saying mask up, mask up, mask
Yeah,
up.
I mean.
And so so we've had another flip-flop in the case of COVID by Mehmet. But it's a serious problem because we can't have the government intervening and taking too much control. We've got to let that responsibility rest with individuals.
And we are turning to Mr. Oz. Same question. What lessons have you learned over the past 2 years that would shape your policy priorities for the next pandemic? 60 seconds.
We witnessed a top-down, authoritarian, controlling response by government that was unable to accomplish any of its major goals. Early on, for the first 6 weeks, there was abject panic everywhere. We had no tests. We didn't have leaders that we knew we could trust. Thank goodness President Trump was able to.
Wait, that was all under Trump. What is he talking about?
But Anthony Fauci, who was the leader of that initial response, should be fired. I've called for his removal. I would debate him. I've
Fired? He should be killed.
Means of calling out his failings, but he's representative of what we're witnessing now, which is middle-level bureaucrats making regulations and rules, even though they're unelected, that dramatically change.
Wasn't Trump in charge? This is very strange.
We're New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York in terms of its response to COVID, and they were three of the strictest states. So the mandates didn't work, we now know that, but we've made Washington drunk with power, with the belief that they can actually micro-rule everything. And you're seeing the manifestations of that with our school systems, you're seeing it with energy policy, and you're seeing it at the border. All these examples of a top-down authoritarian, ineffective rule.
Mr. Oz, 30-second follow-up. Have you changed your position on COVID from the beginning of the pandemic to now?
No. And I haven't done out, just to be completely open with everybody, how could you possibly think that I was not aggressively pushing back when I remember distinctly speaking on the Sean Hannity show about the fact we should not keep our schools closed, and the amount of hate mail and posts that came out that effectively tried to cancel me was reflected.
And there were mean tweets too. I mean, listen, the guy took it on the chin.
Push back against orthodoxy. The right thing initially was to be cautious. Doctors are careful when they walk into the operating room until you get your bearings. But once you understand who your teammates really are, who you can count on, and how the patient's doing, you need to be cautious. And then after that, do what's right for the patient, always.
All right, thank you, Mr. Oz. Turning to Ms. Barnett, 60 seconds. What have you learned over the last 2 years that would define your policy priorities?
We need to walk as free people. We need to remember that that COVID does not trump the U.S. Constitution. Those are some very key lessons that we should have learned coming out of this. We should have also learned what kind of leadership we really need at this moment. We lived through 2 years that felt like literal hell jumped out on top of us, with Democrats putting their foot on our throats, putting their foot on our businesses.
She even had to work from home. It was crazy.
We should have learned a very valuable lesson of what kind of leader we need at this moment. We need people who are going to be fighters. We don't need people who are globalists in the way that they have lived their lives and run their business. And although I think you're a magnanimous individual, but you and your corporation, McCormick, you are a part of the WEF, the World Economic Forum, you, as well as you, Oz.
You and you and you?
Economic Forum. This is a very serious organization that has a mindset of pushing globalism.
Globalist.
Environmental, social governance.
Okay, thank you.
And we need to be mindful of that.
Thank you, Ms. Barnett. 15-second quick response, sir. Mr. McCormick.
Well, listen, I've run two businesses, wildly successful businesses. I'm not going to apologize for my success. I have done business around the world. It makes me uniquely capable of understanding the global.
So I'm thinking Barnett is the craziest of the five, right?
I've served in combat, so I know how to deal with the challenges we face.
All right.
And just like President Trump, that experience is going to make me a better senator.
But that didn't have anything to do with the World Economic Forum.
Thank you. Let's continue on with Mr. Bartos. Let him have a turn to speak here. What specifically have you learned over the past 2 years?
A critical question, because I want every viewer to hear this. During the pandemic, while we were shut down, while our schools were shut, while our businesses were shut, while our communities were ripped apart, Dave and his family were living, they were hunkered down, I think the magazine said, in Aspen, Colorado, which is lovely, but they were not in Pennsylvania. Dave was running a company where he instituted, as the CEO, mask mandates. Mehmet was living in New Jersey. I had my sleeves rolled up on main streets across all 67 counties, raising money with a great group. I was leading the effort, but we had lots of volunteers, raising money and helping over 1,000 small business owners on Main Street, mom and pops, keep the doors open when our government, and this is the key takeaway, our government continued to put career politicians and people who live at the highest levels of the elite, they continued to put policies in place that favored the giant companies over small mom and pops. And what I heard from the 600 plus business owners I had the privilege to talk to during the pandemic, they don't want a darn thing from the government except a level playing field. Who are we as a society if all that's left when this dust finally clears are giant corporations? That is not Pennsylvania, and that is not the kind of senator I'll be.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bartos.
And yet they all want to reduce regulations on corporations.
Which allows the federal government to prevent people from entering the country during health emergencies like a pandemic. It was set to expire May 23rd, but just tonight, before we took the stage, a federal judge granted a temporary restraining order to keep Title 42 in place until another court hearing. Javier Becerra, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Secretary, recently addressed his concern about extending Title 42. Listen to this, please.
You use migration laws to deal with migration challenge. You can't use the cover of health to try to deal with migration challenge.
Mr. McCormick, we're going to begin with you. Do you agree with the judge who is keeping Title 42 in place and keeping migrants outside the country, or is that managing a migration issue?
They just said there's no COVID problem.
You have 60 seconds.
So why would you use Title 42?
That it was a right decision to keep Title 42 in place, and it's.
But you don't think there's any health emergency? You don't even think people need to wear masks?
What the open border policies of Joe Biden have done, they have created a huge flow across our borders. It's creating and adding to the fentanyl crisis in Pennsylvania. It's contributing to the crime in our sanctuary cities like Philadelphia. It's putting huge burden on our social services. We've got to secure the border. We've got to finish the wall.
You guys understand the issue, right? They all go, COVID was overblown. We don't need masks. We don't need closures. It's just nothing's going on. Oh, so we'll end the special emergency order to instantly deport people because of COVID, right? Oh, no. We need that. We need that for health emergencies.
And was fined in 2017, agreed to the fact that they had consciously hired illegal immigrants. And that $95 million fine is the highest in the history of ICE. He's a shareholder. His family gets $2 to $10 million a year from that company.
Mr. Oz, your turn. Do you support tonight's ruling, or are we managing a migration issue with a public health order? You have 60 seconds.
I support the ruling. We have a city, Philadelphia, which just lifted its mask mandate after putting it on 4 days ago. Universities all over the country are putting masks back on, locking down. My son was in medical school, similar situation, telling me firsthand how the kids don't want it, but they're forced. So if we're going to force our children, and now in Los Angeles, as you know, there's a mandate for all transportation, so people aren't even following the CDC rules. Why would we drop the obligation for immigrants who are coming into this country as part of a cartel-run human trafficking operation that's basically subsidized by the weak rules of the Biden administration? And they're running narcotics across at the same time. 100,000 Americans died last year from narcotic overdose. That's 4 times more than died of COVID under the age of 50. And when it comes to David McCormick and his progressively desperate efforts to undermine me, you're picking on my wife's grandfather's company, where I have no management role at all. However, you did have a management role while Bartos and I and many others were struggling to deal with COVID here, building the largest foreign hedge fund ever in China, which so much so that President Trump on his teletown hall on Friday said that there are some weak people, pro-China people, who would let China eat our lunch.
Thank you. Ms. Barnett, a federal judge not letting Title 42 expire on May 23rd. Is that appropriate, or should public health orders be controlling migration? You have 60 seconds.
It is appropriate. Yes, it is. You cannot have a state of national emergency for the nation, but not have a national emergency as it relates to COVID at the border. But that is, it's in line with a lot of other illogical things that the Biden administration and Democrats have forced upon American people. Right now, we are on track of having over 4 million unlawfully present people come into our nation. There is nothing racist. There is nothing dispassionate about wanting to know who's coming into our country, where are they going, how are they going to take care of themselves. That just makes plain sense. It's not just the fentanyl, but it's the human trafficking and the human suffering that is also coming into our country. We need to secure our border by a variety of measures. We need to enforce the Remain in Mexico, enforce the first safe nation. People should not be allowed to to shop for asylum. And lastly, we need to take a strong look at the USCIS. We have 1.5 million people trying to get into the country legally, and they're being barred and
Thank you.
So.
Mr. Bartos, 60 seconds to you. The pandemic is keeping undocumented immigrants on the other side of the border. Is that an appropriate way to deal with the issue? You have 60 seconds.
The judge is correct, and even Democrats running for re-election are running away from the Biden administration on this issue. That tells you how bad the Biden administration is on Title 42 and on the border. The border is an unmitigated disaster. While these candidates fight with each other, I'm running to fight for Main Street, Pennsylvania. And the sons and daughters of Main Street, Pennsylvania are dying by the hundreds because of fentanyl that's crossing our southern border. We have a southern border that's porous. Criminals are crossing the border, fentanyl's crossing the border, and Main Street Pennsylvanians across all 67 counties are suffering and dying. We need a strong border. We need to build the wall. We need to enforce the policies that worked under the Trump administration, whether it's Remain in Mexico, Title 42, and other policies. And we need to fight for good-paying jobs, safe and secure communities, and parental choice, and for all empowering parents and students across all 67 counties. Saving Main Street, Pennsylvania means those 3 issues. It starts in many cases, with a secure border.
Thank you. Turning to Ms. Sands, was the judge correct in extending Title 42? And what do you say to critics who insist that that's managing migration through a public health order? You have 60 seconds.
You know, we need to secure our border and build the wall. Everything President Trump put in place worked. We had the most secure border in my lifetime during the last year of his presidency. In the Senate and in the House, we're going to put those policies back in place. We're going to need an America First president to really get it done in 2024. But the fact is, we do have the biggest influx of illegal immigration, and I will just call it an invasion into our country.
There it is.
Estimating if we don't keep this in
It's
place.
that dehumanizing language. They're invading. We've released them into the public.
Of the Biden administration. That's a disaster. They're giving them cash cards, housing, transportation, phones, and benefits that American citizens don't get. We have to secure our border. We have to build the wall. And I will just say, Mehmet Oz, he actually praised the Chinese Communist Party's response to the pandemic. And Dave McCormick could never have made the billions he did without bowing to the Chinese Communist Party. You do not make billions in China without bowing to the Chinese Communists.
We have a quick follow-up. Ukrainian refugees are crossing into the U.S. along the southern border. Forbes magazine estimates that more than 3,000 Ukrainian citizens were processed in March. That's a 12-fold increase from February. Should we treat Ukrainian refugees differently than other undocumented immigrants? Mr. McCormick, 30 seconds.
Good question.
We should treat Ukrainian refugees differently, but we should take care that not to expand that envelope into a broader program. And the most important thing is we need to support the Ukrainians in their fight for freedom. We need to give them all the lethal aid they need. We need to
treat them differently. How?
In a calamity, and it's because of the weakness of Joe Biden in Afghanistan and our energy policy.
Mr. Oz, we're going to give you 30 seconds. Should Ukrainian refugees be treated differently than other undocumented immigrants?
No, Ukrainian refugees should be coming directly to America, not through the southern border where it's a lawless environment that is profiting for cartels.
Oh, my God.
We have to drain the swamp, not just in Washington, but at the border. People are making a lot of money off of the weak response of the Joe Biden administration. And Ukrainian refugees may be Ukrainian, maybe not. Who knows who they are? And we should be directly allowing them to come. And there are communities here in Pennsylvania where there are large Ukrainian populations who are inviting these people in, and the U.S. government is not getting out of...
Even if they're not Ukrainian, we should still consider them Ukrainian and treat them differently?
We want to move on to another topic, Lisa.
We want to quickly get to another topic. Only 30 seconds for these responses, though. Beginning with you, Mr. Oz. A question has to do with transgender athletes competing in women's sports. Earlier this year, UPenn swimmer Leah Thomas won the 500 freestyle swim at the NCAA Women's Championships. Before transitioning, Leah competed with the UPenn men's team in 2019. There was outrage coming out of the victory of Leah Thomas by female swimmers who thought it was unfair. Would you vote in favor of legislation that would prevent trans women from competing in women's sports? Mr.
Legislation.
Oz, 30 seconds.
Yes. Biologic men, don't let liberals control the language. Biologic men should not be playing women's sports. I feel so strongly about that, I actually put it in my ad. And I believe across the board, we're missing the point here. Leah Thomas went to my alma mater, Penn. Penn said nothing to protect those poor young women who got up at 6 in the morning, practiced their whole lives to protect their rights. The NCAA cowardly said nothing. It was the parents of these poor girls who love their daughters more than anything in the world who stood up and said, enough's enough, you're hurting our children. What happened to Title IX support of female athletes?
Thank you, Ms. Barnett. 30 seconds. Would you vote in favor of legislation that would ban trans women from competing in women's sports? 30 seconds.
Absolutely. Biology matters. Biology is a reality.
Will any of them use the term tallywhacker, do you guys think?
I find it to be unjust. I find it to be misogynist. You cannot compete and get all the benefits of being a man all your life and then suddenly decide one day you want to be a woman. I find it to be incredibly unjust. Not only do we need to have laws that protect those who find themselves outside of the norm of what society may consider the norm, but we also must look at legislation that protects our young boys and girls as well.
Same question. Would you vote in favor of legislation that would prevent trans women from competing?
The failure, what we're seeing happen at Penn is, again, another example of the failure we see of woke CEOs, woke corporations, woke institutions. The NCAA failed those swimmers, period. The NCAA failed. The highly paid executives at the NCAA failed. We have fought for 6 decades to get our girls onto a level playing field for athletics, and we want to undo it all because there's no courage from these leaders. I would support legislation to ban it, but we can't keep looking to the government for that. This falls on the people who are highly paid to have the courage to take care of it.
Your comments in favor of legislation that would prevent trans women from competing?
Yes, in a word, I actually wrote an op-ed opposing transgender athletes. Men cannot compete against women. It's not.
She's just against trans athletes, period. She's just against it as a concept. If you're trans, you shouldn't even be allowed to shoot hoops.
I will ban the indoctrination of children into critical race theory, where they teach our children to hate each other and hate their country. I will work
Thank you, Ms.
at the
McCormick,
federal level.
30 seconds.
Absolutely, I would support that legislation. Biological males should not be able to compete with females. But again, Mehmet, I'm sorry to keep bringing these things up, but you did an entire show on July 22nd, 2015, that was about 8, 7, 8, 9-year-old children, and you were supporting those conversations about transgender transitions, surgical things, treatments that would be irreversible. So I think we could all agree that that's absolutely inappropriate in every way.
I wish we could continue
I'm sorry.
on. We've got
I'm sorry. That's a little too much.
10 seconds to respond.
So David
We gotta get
McCormick is
closings.
going to be my biographer.
No, I
He
tweeted
studied
it
my
out,
resume
too.
so carefully. I do television shows.
She tweeted it.
Study about views that need to be expressed on network
All right,
television.
we have got to move on. Our producers are telling us
What a
those
loser.
closing statements in.
They're all losers.
We're going to go in reverse polling order, beginning with Ms. Sands. 30 seconds.
You're at the very bottom, Ms. Sands.
Thank
Please
you.
go first.
I'm running for the U.S. Senate here in Pennsylvania. I'm America First. I'm a pro-life, pro-First Amendment, pro-Second Amendment, constitutional conservative, America First businesswoman, Christian, and mom. I will never back down in fighting to make Pennsylvania a better place for our families. We've been going in the wrong direction for over 40 years. This is the time for a turnaround. I'm asking for you to support me on May 17th.
Mr. Bartos, 30 seconds.
I'm a kid from Reading who spent his entire life here in the Commonwealth. I love Pennsylvania with every fiber of my being. And as you watched here tonight, you got out-of-state candidates fighting with each other. To all the viewers at home, no, I will always fight for you and your families. I always have. I always will. I'd be honored to have your support on May 17th. Thank you so much.
And Ms. Barnett, 30 seconds.
Yes, I am you. I'm you. I have been traveling over 1,500 miles all across this Commonwealth, more than any other candidate here. When someone mentions a county, I see your faces, I hear your stories. I'm sitting across the table with you. I've been in $1 million homes. I've been in some very humble homes. But these are very serious times. Our country is in trouble, and we need people who not only memorize our talking points, but people who have actually lived our talking points and who will fight for you and your
Mr. Oz,
family.
30 seconds. Mr. Oz.
About life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life starts at conception. Protect those little children from indoctrination when they're young. Make sure they're well educated and turn out into the workforce to build successful lives. Keep them safe from crime and protect the borders. Liberty is about the First Amendment and the Second Amendment to protect the First Amendment. And the pursuit of happiness for me is about capitalism, which is a beautiful way of living your life, and individualism. We don't want to be collectivists. That's what the Democrats are pushing for. As Republicans, we have to be exactly who we are.
What a word salad.
And be brave enough to act on it.
Mr. McCormick,
Meaningless.
Stakes are high, ladies and gentlemen. The country is headed in absolutely the wrong direction. I'm battle tested. I've served in our military. I've put America first. I've gone into combat. I've built businesses. I built businesses and created jobs in Pennsylvania. I'm an outsider, and I'll go fight for you because I am you. I grew up in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, on that main street Jeff Bartos is talking about. And the thing you can count on with me is I say what I believe, and I will do what I say. And I'd be honored to have your vote and privileged to be your senator. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all. We would like to thank all of our candidates for participating in tonight's debate. And a reminder, Pennsylvania's primary election is May 17th.
And be sure to tune in on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. as the Republican gubernatorial candidates will debate. We thank you for joining us. We thank all the candidates, and have a great night.
There we go. There go the Republicans. What a group, huh? And there they go. Wow, what a disastrous debate. I mean, an absolutely disastrous debate. Word salad after words, just meaningless, just trash. I can't think of a worse debate. I think I'd go for any of the 4 Democrats over any of those 5 people. I mean, that was crazy. It was crazy. Oh, man. Thanks to everybody who sent in memberships during that. Blueberry Babe, Dave Schmidt, Lady Vintage, Liquid Ice. If you have an Amazon Prime account, subscribe to my channel on Twitch with Twitch Prime. It's free. You're just taking $5 from Jeff Bezos and sending it to me, which is a pretty good deal. I think. I mean, I don't know. You be the judge. Wow. Oh, hold on a second. Let's just ban someone. Yeah. All right. We're just banning a few people here. Wow. There looks like there's a bunch of people we need to ban, actually. Well, we'll do that later. Thanks to Hellstorm Angel and Skittle Stew for the Twitch Prime subscriptions. Very much appreciate that, guys. All right, guys, that does it for me. This was the second stream of the day. New podcast, YouTube clips, videos, all of it tomorrow. See you then.